Welcome back to the Automation Podcast. My name is Shawn Tierney from Insights, and this week I sit down with Bobby Nelson from Nachi Robotics to learn all about their products and company. But before we get to that, a couple of announcements. First of all, this episode's not sponsored, so I wanted to let members know there is an ad-free extended edition of this episode in the members program. So if you're a member on YouTube or theautomationblock.com, you may want to watch that version instead of this version. And the second announcement is, if you know anybody who needs to get up to speed on compact logics, maybe they've did a little work with PLCs, maybe other brands, maybe looking over people's shoulders, and you really want them to be competent now with compact logics. I'm running a course September 22nd through the 25th. This is open enrollment. Enrollment is now open. I actually have courses between now and then for private companies, but this one's open to the public, so anybody can sign up. You just have to know what a PLC is and what ladder logic is and how to use a mouse and keyboard, and you can get into this course, and I'll take you soup to nuts from introduction to what a compact logics is, and then I'll have you writing and troubleshooting some advanced code by the end of it. And if you want to get into the Panel View Plus or messaging legacy PLCs, we can do all that as well. But with that said, it is September 22nd through 25th, and you can save $300 if you sign up before September 1st. Now, right now, it's only $1,700 for 4 days, and once you finish the course, you get a copy of the online course as well. That's a $200 value. So you can continue to ask me questions, and that allows me to not cover all of the stuff, all of the lectures that I do online in the course, because there's a lot of stuff I do online, like assembling the products, taking them apart, putting them together. I cover a lot of deeper theory than I do in the in-person course. I do cover a lot of theory. I mean, I'm not just going to set you in a room with a bunch of manuals. I am going to take you through and introduce you to the product and the important key concepts, but I go a lot deeper into theory in the online course. So it's nice to have both, right? So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode with Bobby Nelson and learn all about Nachi Robotics. Bobby, thank you for coming on the Automation Podcast. I'm really looking forward to learning all about your products. I actually saw some of your products on LinkedIn, and that's why I reached out to you guys. I'm like, we got to get you on the show. But before we jump into the podcast and talking about companies and products, could you first introduce yourself to our audience?
Absolutely, Shawn. Thanks for the invite. And appreciate this opportunity. I'm Bobby Nelson. I'm the North American Sales Manager here at Nachi Robotics. A little bit about Nachi. We've been around since 1928. We, in fact, our founder had started off by coming up with creating a hacksaw. And back in the Industrial Revolution era, they needed to cut steel in Japan, and somebody approached him and said, can you help us? And so he did just that. And from there, it spiraled into cutting tools and steels, and then worked its way into robotics. And Nachi, we were the first computer-controlled robot, servo-driven robot in Japan. Before any of the other players out there in the robot world, we were the leader in that.
Wow!
So we've came out with many products throughout the years. Everything from a 1 kg capacity payload all the way up to 1,000 kg capacity payload. So therefore, it gives us a lot of opportunities to help customers out with our product, no matter what they may be in need of, and especially with today's labor shortages. We're all around the world. North America, here's all of our facilities that we have just here, but as I mentioned, we're worldwide. So it's great for customers that work internationally or have plants internationally. We have the support staff and the product there for you.
Before you go to the next slide, I want just for the people who are on the listening and not watching, right? So about a quarter of our audience listens. I just want to shout out Michigan, California, Indiana, Ohio, and South Carolina, some of the U.S. offices. And, they have things like tech support, engineering, 24-hour on-call service, training, spare parts, repair, maintenance and service, all the stuff you would expect and you'd want from your major suppliers. So I just wanted to kind of go through that because I think that's important for the audio audience to know that. And let me turn it right back to you, Bobby.
Absolutely. No, and it's great. We have such a phenomenal support staff. With our 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we tell our customers, you call in if you have an issue, and within after hours, we have a call center within 15 minutes who will actually have an engineer on the phone solving the problem for you. And awesome. We do this free of charge. There's, our biggest thing is we understand the importance of the customer being down, and therefore we want to make sure that they're truly taken care of in the shortest amount of time. And that also comes back to our roots because we were very deep in the automotive industry. Toyota was our number one customer.
Mhm.
And so you can't allow the auto plant to be down for any reason or
No.
length of time for that matter. So going on and talking about our product, one of our newest designs is our MZS series. And this is what we call our collision free. Works much the same as, basically the automotive sensors in your car. It senses you as you walk up to it. And this robot moves actually at 2,500 millimeters per second.
Wow.
And that is what the speed of an industrial robot moves at. But for this to be a collaborative robot and move at that kind of speeds, and then also to avoid collision. So I have a little video, unfortunately, for the listeners that aren't able to see this, but I can explain the audio of what happens. And so the robot is moving around, and there'll be a halo that you can set up and program. And as a person starts to walk into that, you see it start to slow down. And you can set these barriers up to where as they get close enough where the robot could possibly strike them, the robot will come to a complete stop. And it'll wait and not do anything. And then from there, it'll move away. Or once the person moves away, then the robot will go back into operating again. And, traditional collaborative robots, they have to make contact with you. Then you have to go and physically grab the control, reset everything, and start all over again.
Oh,
well, this takes away all those steps and also gives you more throughput because of the speed of our robot.
So what kind of sensor are you using around the robot to have that safe zone?
So let me see if the next slide here will kind of show. I'll take that back. So what we have is embedded into the arm along the sides and on the top are sensors that we call them skins that are the covers that cover it. They're below those skins. So that's where it's reading and having their radius. And one of the things that we also compensate for is the end of arm tool. Because it's kind of senseless if you don't have some way of knowing where that end of arm tool is. So once again, we've created with our sensors it's a halo that you can say the size of what you have out there, and then it takes that into compensation for when it does these motions.
So instead of just using some kind of ultrasonic sensor or vision sensor, you actually put the sensors on the robot arm itself.
Yes.
So as it's moving, it's sensing around it.
Yep. And if you see in this display that I have here, this video, where it says the word Nachi, those sensors are underneath those covers. So those covers on the arm and on the side of the arm is where the sensors are actually located. Just moving on, the other, big hotspot out there is the ease of programming.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody is, now into the tablet world. We've started from for our first smartphones. And so now it's, we find customers that request a tablet, and used to be the old timers wanted to have just a regular traditional controller. And now we had one specific customer said that, our workers are like in their 60s and they're so used to using their tablet at home at night, doing shopping or paying bills or scrolling that, they feel much more comfortable if we'd have a tablet for them to program with. And so, Nachi, we had developed a very user-friendly tablet to do just that and interface with our robots at any capacity. And we just showed various sizes, of what you can do with our tablets as far as, the traditional, you see the Nachi screen was a 5.7. Now our tablets, we have over 10-inch screens with the tablet. So it really makes it easier to see and function with that. And this is a little bit more of just tutorials of what we can do. We can do audio guided videos, explain the basic operations on the tablet. So if a customer gets into trouble or uncertain how to do something, it's great with what technology and AI is bringing to the world to expand for all of us robotics manufacturers.
Hey guys, just want to break in here quickly and pay the bills. 2 notes. Number one, if you're a member, there is a commercial-free extended edition of this in the members area on YouTube and theautomationblog.com. Membership starts at just $5 a month, and it helps me bring you shows like this where the vendor does not sponsor the episode. Also, I just want to let you know, if you know anybody who needs Compact Logix training, I have a course scheduled from September 22nd to the 25th. It is only $1,700 if you sign up by September 1st. And you also get the online course once you complete the in-person course. We're 1 hour east of Albany. New York. So we're not that far away. It's a beautiful drive through the country, and we have all the big hotels within 3 miles of the office. So if you know anybody who's looking for training, please let them know about that. I also do custom training. I have several classes between now and then here that are for specific customers. So if you need something more custom, just give me a call. And with that said, let's go ahead and jump back into this week's episode of the Automation Podcast. Bobby, appreciate you going through that. That's some pretty big differentiators. Is your support, your sensing, the capability to be a collaborative, intelligent robot that's working with people and slows down and stops when they get next to it. Let's talk about applications, right? You're meeting with people all the time, talking about where they can use these Nachi robots, right? Talk to us about some of the applications your robots are used in.
Absolutely. So, we do a lot of spot welding industry, so automotive body panels, an enormous amount of that. Palletizing, we do a lot in the food industry, packaging for palletizing. The other that's really taking off is, believe it or not, manufacturing deburring. We're seeing
Oh,
more
all
and
right.
more of the industry needs for robotic deburring because at today's cycle rates for customers, they can't waste time having the machine do the deburring at the same time of machining. My background was a machinist by trade years ago, and I was taught when you would program that part, it better come out burr-free. And now talking with business owners and plant managers, they said, we can't afford that. So they now are taking parts out of the machine, set it on a table, and they have operators deburring their parts. Well, they of course get backlogged, or we have one example of a customer that they have a part that machines for 24 hours straight. It then takes somebody 4 hours to deburr this part. If the
Wow.
person in the slightest heavy hands the deburr,
Hmm.
the part is scrapped.
Yes.
And so now we have come up with a system that allows them to have their part deburred robotically and therefore reduces the opportunity for scrap. And the other thing is, we've got gear deburring. So many of these, when they're having their gears are cut, they have a sharp burr that goes around that gear. Same thing. And one of our customers, I believe they have something around 3,000 different types of gears that they run regularly. So you can see that it's a big, span of having to come up with deburring those parts. And once again, we worked up with a system to be able to make that interchangeable for them. We have another one, automotive world, pistons. They have manufactured pistons for the autos. When they get machined, there's all kinds of burrs on them. And they would have people sit around with little Dremels and
Hmm.
go through and deburr all that. We're now achieving that with using our robots to do that type of thing as well.
So I can definitely see deburring being one of those processes in the machining process that would be very time consuming. And so if we can offload the deburring from the machining process to, a robotic process, right? I can see that would allow you to machine a lot more parts, correct?
Yep, absolutely. It increases their throughput and at the same time assures them that they have a quality part that's burr free that can then be shipped out to their customer, because that's another thing, the issues they were having is, somebody might be in the middle of deburring, somebody else happens to walk up and ask them a question. Well, guess what? They may have missed that area to go back to
Hmm.
deburring and move on. And now a part got out of their doors to a unhappy customer.
Yeah, I just think of things I've built in the garage where I've deburred them in missed spots, and I'm like, you cut yourself later, and you're like, oh, should have been paying
Yeah.
attention. But too, I mean, we see this in manufacturing a lot, is that finishing of that product, right? That is where you never want to make a mistake because you've added all the value to the product, right? So if you mess up a small piece of raw stock, nobody cares, right? There's no value. It has been machined for hours and had all these processes done to it. I once had somebody I was working with. They were coating lenses, and they had to make sure that that process was, because the lenses, all the money was put into the lens, grinding it. And once it was
Yeah.
ready for its coating, you did not want to mess that up because that would make a very expensive lens now useless. This very inexpensive coating, if the wrong one was applied, now that work, that very expensive product was useless. So I can see that with deburring, especially on expensive products, the
Yes. Yes.
variability of hand deburring would not be acceptable.
No. And also the nice thing about what we do as well is part tracking.
Hmm.
So for customers to be able to know that, yes, the confirmation stamp that it did get through that, because with the robot, we can have a report spit out from our controller stating that, yeah, at this time, this part was processed. And so they have that to even, better track their quality in case that, for instance, there was something that came about, they could be able to know exactly where it was at. And we're able to do that by, now automating it this way, opposed in the past, it would just be, it'd be done by an operator, be set in a bin, and, away it goes. There wouldn't be no much of a tracking for it that way.
Yeah, let's talk about that too. Connectivity. Like there are so many different systems out there. Talk to us about like the different type of systems you connect to. I'm sure
Oh,
you have a lot of popular favorites out there that your customers are asking for all the time.
well, the great thing about the Nachi robot is, so we have a built-in PLC, and with our PLC, it's extremely powerful to allow us to interface with all different types of equipment, and allows the flexibility where many times our competition, they have to add an external PLC to run a system. Well, we can run that, again, through ours. And, on larger cells, of course, we'd use external PLC, but many of our small systems was all ran through the robot. And the reason for that is it makes it easier to control if you're interfacing with a conveyor, or maybe you're interfacing with a barcode reader, or scanners, or auxiliary equipment. It allows us just to control that through our controller itself. And communication is another key. We seamlessly use many different protocols. Like, for example, popularity out there is an Ethernet IP connection.
Mhm.
But for us, we go outside of that. We can do a Profinet, a Profibus, CC Link, Cat Link, just about all these different interfaces. And in the beginning, when I started really working with our integrators, I would name all these things, and the customers would be like, "That's fantastic,"
Mm.
because a certain product brand out there, they only push Ethernet IP. And they said when we needed to do a Profinet or a Profibus, that product struggled. That company, their control struggled with it. And they said, since you can seamlessly do it the way you guys do, it makes it much easier for us. And so
Yeah.
we just most recently have teamed up with one of the universities here in Michigan,
Mhm.
and that was one of the professor had stated to us. He said, "You guys have such a powerful controller." He says, "You don't push your controller enough out there." He says, "We work with everybody's robots here at the university, and I can say hands down, Nachi is far superior when it comes to the strength of your control." So I was
That's
very happy
awesome.
to know that.
Yeah,
We only know us. We only know what we build. We don't know what everybody else is.
sure.
We don't study them. We don't dissect them. But it's good to hear that from the outside.
Yeah, that's good to know. And it seems like you have more of a global focus because, like you said, in the States, typically it's Ethernet IP, and a lot of Europe is going to be Profinet, and a lot of Asia is going to be CC Link. And not that those are exclusive. There's a little bit of everything everywhere, but the fact that you're supporting those three, and then you mentioned some others as well, is that just is a win-win for the customer. I love this trend of vendors like we've had weight scale vendors on, and they're supporting all of those networks as well. And I just love the support from the hardware vendors to support multiple protocols. It's because in the end, the customer wins. If you can invest that R&D up from front, then the customer wins because they can use whatever system they want to tie into. But with that said, Bobby, I want to thank you for coming on the show and telling us all about your company and your products.
Well, and we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. And I want to thank Bobby from Nachi for coming on and telling us all about his company and their products. I also want to thank you all for tuning back in, especially our members. There's hundreds of videos now that are members only, special insider. I don't know, did several of those this year. We have extended editions of the podcast. We got all the back episodes of the news show and the Q&A show. So if you want to support my work, especially when we don't have a sponsorship, it's several hours that we have to spend on that. So we really appreciate you members who make that possible. And please consider signing up for just $5 a month, either at theautomationblog.com or on YouTube. And with that said, I want to wish you all good health and happiness. And until next time, my friends, peace.